French defense, the starting moves are 1 e4, e6. With e6, black wants to support the pawn push to d5 next move. Black tries to set up d5 as a firm anchor in the center. Although black has some concerns developing bishop on c8, French defense has significant appeal. Black can put increasingly more pressure on white's center with c5 or f6. Usually, white continues with d4 and then black continues with d5. Popular variations in French defense include advanced variation e5, exchange variation e takes d5, Paulsen variation knight c3, Tarrasch variation knight d2, Schlechter variation bishop d3. Let us check the main ideas and plans for the French defense. White opens with 1 e4, taking control of the center and opens up diagonals for the development of pieces. Black plays e6. Apart from the reasons mentioned earlier, e6 serves one more important purpose. Black closes the c4 f7 diagonal for the white bishop. So there are no checkmate threats or traps from white in near future, which can be the case for other moves like e5. White usually follows up with 2 d4 and black replies d5. Here, white needs to make important choice among different variations. Let us check 3e5 advanced variation first, which is more popular in low-rated players. White gains more space and prevents black from developing the knight to f6. We recommend c5 for black to eliminate white's pawn on d4 and to develop the pieces of their king side to good squares. White plays c3, defending d4. Black plays knight c6, putting more pressure on d4. Here, some white players play f4, adding another defender to e5. However, it is a mistake. Black can punish it in b6, putting more pressure on d4, knight f3, then knight h6, planning to attack d4 one more time with knight f5, bishop d3, controlling f5 and planning to exchange the knight if it lands on f5, then c takes d4, c takes d4. Here, it appears like black can win d4 pawn with knight takes d4. However, after knight takes d4, queen takes d4, white can play bishop b5 check, winning the black queen with discovered attack. So, instead, black should play bishop d7, a prophylactic move. Then, white normally plays bishop c2, defending d4, and then black can play knight b4. Black has a very pleasant attacking position with straightforward moves like rook c8, getting the open file. And black has a lot of tactical chances. Whereas white's position is cramped. So here, instead of f4, we recommend knight f3 for white. Black plays queen b6, adding more pressure on d4. Here, we recommend a3. It looks like a weird move. However, it is controlling important b4 square. If black plays c takes d4, after c takes d4, white is comfortable as the central tension is dissolved and white has more space. So instead, we recommend bishop d7 for black. Black can even play it before queen b6, transposing into the same position. Black's plan is to open up the c file with c takes d4, c takes d4, and then control it with rook c8. Also, although knight f6 is not possible due to e5, black can develop the knight via another route, e7 to f5. Let us check next variation, e takes d5, which is called exchange variation. Black replies e takes d5. Black can copy most of the white's moves to keep a symmetrical position on board. We recommend knight f3, a logical developing move. Black can reply with symmetrical move knight f6. The game can proceed as follows. Bishop d3, bishop d6, castle, castle, bishop g5, bishop g4, knight bd2, and knight bd7. Although this variation has a reputation of being drawish, both white and black players can find ways to unbalance the game. After this, let us look at the next variation, 3 knight c3, which is called Paulsen variation. It is the most popular at the top level. White develops a piece keeping diagonals open for both the bishops. We recommend knight f6 for black, fighting for the center. After white plays e5, attacking the knight, black can retreat it to d7. White plays f4, reinforcing the center. Black counter-strikes with c5. White plays knight f3, developing piece and supporting the center. Black plays knight c6, putting more pressure on d4. White plays bishop e3, developing the bishop and adding another defender to the d4 pawn. Here, we recommend c takes d4 for black. After knight takes d4, black can play bishop c5, developing bishop to good square and preparing for castle. White normally castles long, while black castles short. Then both attack each other's king sides with a dynamic game. Let us check the next variation, 3 knight d2, which is called Tarrasch variation. With developing knight on d2 instead of c3, white avoids black pinning the knight with bishop b4. Tarrasch variation is more positional than Paulsen variation. Black can play c5, striking in the center, or knight f6 for complicated dynamic play. Commonly, the game proceeds as follows after c5. E takes d5, queen takes d5, as there is no knight c3, knight g f3, c takes d4, bishop c4. Black is temporarily pawn up, but white can regain it with timely knight b3. Meanwhile, black will catch up on development with moves like knight f6, knight c6. After knight f6, game normally proceeds as follows. e5, knight f d7, bishop d3, c5, c3, knight c6, knight e2, c takes d4, c takes d4, f6, challenging e5, e takes f6, knight takes f6. Position is more dynamic than the earlier c5 line. Finally, let us check bishop d3 variation, which is called Schlechter variation. White develops bishop, supports e4, and keeps his options flexible based on black's moves. Please note that here, knight f6 is not good for black, as then, after e5, knight f d7, c3, c5, knight e2, knight c6, a3, white is clearly better. There is a beautiful trap here. Queen b6, b4, excellent move. C takes d4, c takes d4, and knight takes d4, which is a mistake. Because bishop e3, white will win the knight and the game. So instead of knight f6, we recommend d takes e4 for black. The game normally proceeds as follows. Bishop takes e4, knight f6, bishop f3, c5, knight e2, knight c6, bishop e3, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight e5, and knight c3. The position is dynamically balanced with chances for both sides. With these main ideas and plans under your belt, now you can prepare and practice French defense from either side. All the best.